There comes a moment in life when silence becomes louder than all the voices we once heard. When the house that was once full of movement, responsibilities, and purpose suddenly feels too big, too quiet, too empty. Loneliness does not arrive with noise. It creeps in slowly, slipping through the cracks of routine until one day you wake up and realize that you no longer feel necessary, important, or connected to anything meaningful. But what if I told you that this moment, which many fear, is actually the doorway to the most profound transformation a person can experience? What if this phase of life, instead of representing decline, is a powerful opportunity to reclaim inner strength, wisdom, and purpose? So let us begin with a question that every older adult, consciously or not, eventually asks. How can I deal with loneliness and the painful feeling that I am no longer useful? What role can I possibly play in a world that seems to move faster every year? And more importantly, how does one rebuild a sense of purpose when the world no longer demands the same things from us as before? The philosophy of Stoicism, forged over 2,000 years ago, provides a surprisingly modern answer. Not only does it address these feelings with clarity, but it offers practical tools that allow anyone, regardless of age, to rise above emotional suffering and rediscover meaning in the final chapters of life. To understand how Stoicism can help us confront loneliness and the perception of uselessness, we must begin with an uncomfortable truth that the Stoics never feared to face. Most of our suffering is not caused by events themselves, but by the stories we tell ourselves about those events. Loneliness, for example, is not simply the absence of people. It is the interpretation that we are not valued, not remembered, not needed. The feeling of uselessness is not caused by aging itself, but by the belief that our worth is tied to productivity, external validation, or the roles we once played. Marcus Aurelius, one of the wisest Stoic thinkers, faced the same shadows. Despite being emperor surrounded by thousands, he often wrote in his private journal about the suffocating feeling of isolation. He understood something deeply important. Loneliness is not overcome by forcing others to fill our emotional voids. It is conquered by strengthening the relationship we have with ourselves. But how do we do this in practice? How does one turn solitude into strength instead of suffering? The Stoics teach that the first step is radical acceptance, not resignation, not defeat, but the courageous recognition of the reality before us. You are not in the same phase of life. The world has changed. Your family, routine, environment, and responsibilities have shifted. These changes are not personal failures. They are natural parts of life's cycle. Epictetus reminds us that true freedom begins when we stop demanding that life be different than it is. So instead of asking, "Why am I alone?" Stoicism invites us to ask, "What can this moment teach me? How can this silence shape a better version of myself?" From this perspective, solitude becomes a forge, one that molds wisdom, serenity, and inner resilience. But there is a deeper layer, the idea of usefulness. Feeling useless is devastating because human beings are driven by purpose. We need to feel that we contribute to something greater than ourselves. And yet, the Stoics warn us about the dangerous illusion of usefulness tied only to external roles. You are not useful only because you worked, raised a family, or fulfilled responsibilities. You are useful because your existence itself carries the potential to influence, teach, and guide. Seneca emphasized that the greatest service one can offer to the world is not material productivity, but the example of a virtuous life. Your wisdom, your calmness, your resilience, your perspective, these are invaluable contributions, especially in a society that desperately lacks depth. Let us go deeper into this by considering an important Stoic principle, the dichotomy of control. Many older adults suffer because they focus on what they no longer control: the past, youth, physical limitations, the choices of others, or the pace of society. But Stoicism gently redirects attention to what remains within your control even now: your attitude, your thoughts, your habits, your actions, your character. Loneliness weakens when you reclaim what is still yours. And your sense of usefulness grows when you engage in actions aligned with your values, regardless of external recognition. Let us explore a powerful Stoic exercise: redefining purpose. Purpose is not a single grand mission. It is built through small, meaningful commitments. Listening to someone who needs comfort, calling a family member, sharing your life story with someone younger, studying something new, training the mind and body, improving your emotional discipline, becoming a source of stability for people around you. All of these acts generate usefulness. All of them restore dignity. All of them dissolve the illusion that aging reduces your value. But Stoicism does not stop at emotional resilience. It pushes further. It invites action. Curiosity, one of the most important mental triggers we will use here, is essential in defeating loneliness. Because loneliness isolates, but curiosity reconnects. It opens the mind. It invites movement. It awakens dormant potential. What if you use this phase of life to learn something new, to cultivate an activity that you never had time for? The Stoics viewed learning as a lifelong duty, an act that strengthens the mind and protects emotional health. And research today confirms, learning new skills is one of the strongest antidotes to loneliness. Another important point, Stoicism teaches that we are part of a larger community. You may feel isolated, but you are not disconnected from humanity. The mere fact that you are alive places you within a network of potential exchanges, contributions, and relationships. The Stoics believed that every person, regardless of age, plays a unique role within the human family. Your role simply changes. It does not disappear. Let us move toward the emotional climax of this first block. You are not useless. You are not forgotten. You are not at the end of anything. You're at the beginning of a new chapter that demands more wisdom and strength than any other period of your life, but you are fully capable of walking this path. Loneliness is not a punishment. It is an invitation to rebuild yourself from within, to rediscover your inner voice, to become more resilient, more aware, more present, to understand your worth not through the eyes of the world, but through the clarity of your own mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you go can you find a more peaceful refuge than within your own soul." That is the path Stoicism offers, returning to yourself, discovering that you are enough, and realizing that the greatest companion you will ever have is the strength you cultivate internally. Loneliness becomes less frightening when you understand that it is not an enemy, but a messenger. It reveals what needs to be healed, strengthened, or redefined within you. And the feeling of uselessness dissolves when you shift your perspective from external validation to inner purpose. You are still necessary. Your wisdom still matters. Your story still inspires. Your presence still impacts the world around you. This is only the beginning of your transformation. If this message is meaningful to you, and you want to continue this journey of Stoic strength, emotional resilience, and deep purpose, stay with us and subscribe to the channel. The next chapters will guide you even further. Loneliness is not simply an emotional state, it is a mirror that reflects everything we avoided confronting for decades, everything we ran from while life kept us busy, everything we postponed because there was always something more urgent to do. And when the routine slows, when responsibilities diminish, and when the voices that once surrounded us fade into a distant echo, that mirror finally comes into full focus. Many people fear this moment, but the Stoics teach something profoundly different. The person who learns to look directly into that mirror, without fear, without resistance, without denial, becomes unbreakable. There is a hidden strength inside solitude, one that most people never discover because they are too busy running away from discomfort. But every Stoic master understood that the path to inner freedom always begins with honesty. It begins by saying to yourself, "I feel alone. I feel forgotten. I feel unnecessary." These feelings are painful, but feeling them is not a sign of weakness. It is the very doorway to transformation. Avoiding this pain is what keeps people trapped. Facing it is what sets them free. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that he must not fear what is natural. Loneliness is natural. Change is natural. Aging is natural. What makes these experiences unbearable is the belief that they should not be happening, that something went wrong, that life is unfair. But when you remove that belief, what remains is simply a human experience, one that can be shaped, interpreted, and transformed. But let us go deeper. Let us look at the silent truth behind the feeling of uselessness. It is not the lack of tasks or responsibilities that makes a person feel useless. It is the loss of identity. When someone spends decades being a provider, a parent, a worker, a leader, a caretaker, or a source of support for others, those roles become the very definition of who they are. And when those roles fade, it can feel as if the person themselves is fading. The Stoics understood this very well. They warned that a life built only around external roles is fragile, because roles can be taken away, positions can be lost, youth can disappear, strength can diminish. But character, wisdom, and inner purpose, those cannot be taken by time. Seneca wrote that no person is useless if they can still help someone else through their example, their experience, or their perspective. And perspective is something that only age can give. The younger generations may have energy, speed, and ambition, but they lack the depth that comes from decades of living, loving, suffering, overcoming, and rebuilding. And that depth is priceless. It is something that must be passed on. Society may not always know how to ask for it, but it desperately needs it. Let us explore a powerful Stoic idea, the concept of inner roles. External roles are temporary, but inner roles are eternal. You may no longer work in the same way. You may not have the same responsibilities as before, but your inner roles remain intact. You are still a guide. You are still a bearer of wisdom. You are still a witness of life. You are still someone capable of teaching, observing, helping, inspiring, and influencing the world around you. The moment you recognize your inner roles, the feeling of uselessness weakens, because usefulness is not measured by how busy you are. It is measured by how meaningful your presence is. Let us introduce another Stoic principle here, self-governance. When the external world becomes quieter, you are given the opportunity to govern the one world that truly belongs to you, your inner world. Thoughts, emotions, habits, beliefs, reactions, and choices form the internal territory that you alone control. And this internal mastery is the highest form of leadership the Stoics valued. A person who governs themselves contributes more to humanity than someone who simply performs tasks without consciousness. This leads us to a question that many avoid. What if your greatest chapter is not the one where you built, provided, and ran through life, but the one where you learn to master your inner self? What if the most meaningful thing you ever do is something internal, something invisible, something spiritual? Stoicism suggests exactly that. Let us now move into the area of emotional discipline. Emotional discipline is not suppressing feelings. It is understanding them so deeply that they no longer control you. When a person feels lonely, their mind naturally creates narratives. Nobody needs me. I am forgotten. I am no longer important. Stoicism challenges these narratives with brutal honesty. It forces you to ask, is this true? Or is this just a story I am telling myself because I am afraid of this phase of life? The truth is that the human brain, when isolated, tends to focus more on negative interpretations. But solitude, when used with intention, can be transformed into a powerful training ground for emotional clarity. Imagine solitude as a mental gym. At first, it feels uncomfortable, awkward, even painful. But with time, it becomes a place of growth, strength, and transformation. There is another important Stoic exercise, shifting from passive loneliness to active solitude. Passive loneliness is when solitude happens to you. Active solitude is when you choose how to use it. This shift changes everything, because when solitude becomes intentional, it stops being emptiness and becomes a tool, a space for reflection, a space for growth, a space for redefining your life from the inside out. You can use solitude to cultivate disciplines that will strengthen your emotional and mental resilience. Reading, writing, learning, physical movement, meditation, reflection, and even simple mindful walks all become acts of self-reconstruction. Every small action is a vote for the person you want to become, and small actions accumulate. They build identity. They restore purpose. They dissolve the illusion that life after a certain age has nothing left to offer. Let us introduce another deeply important Stoic idea, interconnection. Many older adults assume that relationships must come from family, children, or lifelong social circles. But Stoicism invites you to expand your definition of community. Every person you interact with, even briefly, becomes part of your human circle. Loneliness often comes from shrinking your world too much. But when you expand it, even in simple ways, connection emerges naturally. And here is something that most people never realize. Your presence matters more than you think. You may not see the impact, but it exists. A calm word, a wise observation, a simple act of kindness, a short conversation, a piece of advice, or even your quiet strength. These things shape people. They guide people. They influence people. This influence is subtle, but it is real and powerful. And it is one of the greatest forms of usefulness a human being can offer. Now let us address a deeper emotional reality, the fear of becoming a burden. Many older adults withdraw not because they feel useless, but because they are afraid of being an inconvenience. This fear shapes behavior, isolates the person even more, and reinforces the belief that they should not participate, speak, or contribute. But Stoicism responds with one of its strongest messages. You are not meant to disappear from the world. You are meant to participate in it, even if your role has changed. The universe itself operates on the principle of contribution. Every being, every stage of life, every moment has its place, and you have yours. Let us move toward a point that will become essential for this journey. Your past experiences are not memories to be stored. They are tools to be used. You have lived through things that younger people cannot imagine. You have endured losses, joys, victories, disappointments, responsibilities, sacrifices, and transformations. This reservoir of experience is more valuable than any material possession, and it is something that grows in worth with age, not diminishes. You can teach through stories. You can guide through example. You can inspire through resilience. You can help someone avoid mistakes you once made. You can offer a quiet wisdom that stabilizes others in moments of confusion. This is usefulness in its purest form. Loneliness begins to dissolve when you recognize that the world does not need your productivity. It needs your presence. It needs your insight. It needs your wisdom. And especially, it needs your emotional strength, the kind that only someone who has lived a long life can cultivate. As we approach the emotional peak of this block, let us face an important truth. Aging does not diminish you. It reveals you. It strips away everything superficial and brings you face to face with who you truly are. And who you are is someone capable of depth, strength, transformation, and leadership. Internal leadership, the most powerful kind. You are not at the end of your story. You are at the part where the story becomes honest, where the noise fades so the truth can be heard, where external roles disappear so inner purpose can finally emerge. This is not decline. This is revelation, and it requires courage. But courage is something you have carried your entire life, even if you have forgotten it. The feeling of uselessness is not a truth. It is a misunderstanding. And loneliness is not punishment. It is an invitation to rebuild the most important relationship of all, the one you have with yourself. When you strengthen that relationship, when you cultivate inner stability, everything else becomes easier. You begin to act with intention. You begin to contribute again. You begin to feel alive again. This is the Stoic path, and it is a path available to you right now. If you are ready to continue, stay with this journey. The next block will take you even deeper into the process of rebuilding purpose, strengthening identity, and transforming loneliness into a source of inner power. There comes a moment during the journey of confronting loneliness when something crucial happens inside the mind. The perception of isolation begins to shift. What once felt like an empty space slowly starts to feel like open space. And the difference between those two is profound. Empty space is frightening because it feels like something is missing. Open space is empowering because it feels like something can be created. And this transition, this quiet internal shift, is one of the most important steps in rebuilding purpose later in life. Loneliness softens when you start realizing that it is not only an absence, but also an opportunity. The Stoics understood this deeply, and they used solitude as a workshop of the soul. A place where the mind could be shaped with clarity, strength, and intention. Now you too stand at this same threshold. One of the most important teachings of Stoicism is that human beings are not defined by what happens to them, but by how they respond. When someone experiences loneliness, their first instinct is often to retreat, to shrink, to protect themselves from further emotional discomfort. But this reaction, although natural, often creates even more isolation. The Stoics invite us to do the opposite, to remain open, to remain present, to turn toward the discomfort instead of away from it, because in that turning, the mind begins to reorganize itself. Instead of being ruled by fear, it becomes guided by intention, and intention is the antidote to the feeling of uselessness. When you live without intention, the days begin to blend together, time passes, but nothing feels meaningful. This is where the mind starts whispering painful thoughts like, I don't matter anymore, or my life no longer has a purpose. But when you begin to act with intention, even in small ways, the mind awakens. It stops drifting and begins directing itself. It stops asking, what am I for? And begins asking, what can I create today? And this question alone is powerful enough to reshape an entire emotional landscape. Let us go deeper into this idea of creation. Most people think of creativity as something artistic, but in Stoicism, Every action that shapes your inner world is an act of creation. When you cultivate discipline, you are creating structure. When you cultivate wisdom, you are creating clarity. When you cultivate presence, you are creating peace. When you offer guidance to someone younger, you are creating impact. When you choose to learn something new, you are creating evolution within yourself. This means that even in silence, even in solitude, even with the world moving around you at a pace that no longer matches your own, you are still capable of creating meaning. But many older adults forget this because the world around them stops reinforcing their value. Society often celebrates productivity and speed, things that naturally decline with age. But Stoicism celebrates something different: depth, perspective, resilience, and inner mastery. These qualities grow with age. They sharpen as time passes. They reach their peak later in life, not earlier. And when you shift your perspective to see these qualities as strengths instead of remnants of the past, a powerful transformation begins. Let us now explore the Stoic principle of living according to nature, a cornerstone of their philosophy. To the Stoics, nature was not merely the natural world, but the natural progression of life. Everything has its season. Youth has its energy. Adulthood has its responsibilities. Older age has its wisdom. The mistake many people make is trying to carry the identity of one season into another. When someone tries to hold on to the roles of their past, they suffer. But when they embrace the natural role of their present, they flourish. You are not meant to be who you were 20 years ago. You are meant to become who you are now. And who you are now is someone who has endured, someone who has learned, someone who has lived. The experiences you carry, the failures, the victories, the heartbreaks, the transitions, the moments of resilience, are not simply memories. They are tools. Tools that can help others. Tools that can guide you. Tools that can reshape your current emotional state. The Stoics believed that the older mind was the most valuable mind because it held the widest perspective on life. This brings us to another essential Stoic idea: contribution. The feeling of uselessness often comes when someone believes that they no longer have anything to contribute. But contribution is not defined by physical strength or external productivity. Contribution is defined by impact, and impact can be created through words, attention, presence, advice, listening, or simply being someone who embodies calmness in a chaotic world. Younger generations desperately need guidance. They need wisdom. They need mentors. They need examples of emotional stability. And you carry all of these things within you. Imagine for a moment the younger person who is struggling, overwhelmed by life, convinced that their problems are unsolvable. Your perspective, shaped by years of experience, has the power to shift their entire understanding. Something that feels monumental to them may feel solvable to you because you have already lived through similar storms, and your guidance, even if subtle, can save someone years of suffering. That is not uselessness. That is influence, that is purpose. And it is a purpose that only grows with age. But what about the internal purpose? The one that exists independently of other people? The Stoics believed that every individual carries an inner duty, the duty to become the best version of themselves. This is not a duty imposed by society. It is a duty imposed by reason. And reason is the one faculty that strengthens with age. You may not move as fast, but you understand more deeply. You may not have the same physical energy, but you have the inner energy that comes from clarity. And clarity is the strongest guide a person can possess. Let us explore another Stoic insight. Everything that remains within your control grows with attention. Everything outside of your control grows with neglect. When you focus on what you cannot change, your past, the decisions of others, the passage of time, you create suffering. But when you focus on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your habits, your interpretations, you create peace. Peace does not arrive suddenly. It is cultivated. It is grown the same way a garden is grown, through daily effort, patience, and care. And when peace grows within you, loneliness loses its power, because loneliness feeds on the belief that something external must change. But peace feeds on the understanding that everything internal can be shaped. And this understanding is what frees you. It frees you from waiting for others. It frees you from the past. It frees you from expectations. It frees you from false identities. It frees you from the story that your value depends on your utility. Your value comes from your being, not your doing. And once you fully understand this, the fear of uselessness disappears. Let us move even deeper into the emotional core of this journey. Many people silently hold guilt for not being who they used to be. They punish themselves for slowing down, for needing rest, for having limits, for not being as involved as before. But this guilt is unnecessary and destructive. It is a misunderstanding of the nature of life. The Stoics remind us that you are not meant to stay the same. You are meant to evolve. Every phase of life asks for a different version of you. The version of you that existed decades ago served its purpose. It accomplished what it needed to accomplish. Now it is time for a new purpose. A purpose aligned with wisdom, not speed, with depth, not productivity, with clarity, not obligation. And this clarity brings us to a transformative realization. Loneliness is not the absence of people. It is the absence of connection, specifically, connection with yourself. When you reconnect with yourself, when you treat your mind with respect, when you cultivate purpose intentionally, you stop feeling alone, even when you are by yourself. You begin to feel grounded, centered, whole. And this inner wholeness is something that cannot be taken from you. Imagine waking up and instead of thinking, "What am I lacking?" asking instead, "What can I build today?" This shift, though simple, changes everything. It turns you from a passive observer of life into an active participant again. It restores agency. It ignites energy. It awakens dormant strength. And this internal awakening weakens loneliness at its root. Let us address one final point before this block comes to its emotional close: the importance of direction. A person without direction feels lost. A person with direction feels alive. And direction does not require grandeur. It requires intentionality. Choose one thing to focus on, one skill to learn, one habit to strengthen, one person to help, one idea to explore, one part of yourself to improve, and commit to it. This commitment becomes your anchor. It gives your days structure. It transforms the feeling of drifting into the feeling of progressing. And progress is one of the most powerful antidotes to loneliness. You are not drifting. You are evolving. You are not fading. You are transforming. You are not useless. You are entering the most meaningful stage of inner development, a stage where your purpose is not something given to you, but something created by you. And once created, it becomes unshakable. This is the path you are now walking, a path of clarity, a path of strength, a path of self-mastery. And with each step, loneliness loses its weight and usefulness regains its meaning, not defined by others, but defined by you. Loneliness often feels like a shadow that never stops following you. Even on days when you seem to be functioning, when you smile politely, when you answer messages, when you go to work and return as if everything is normal, that shadow stretches at your feet, reminding you there is still a part of your heart that feels empty, disconnected, or purposeless. Many people believe loneliness is simply the absence of others, but the truth is far more unsettling. You can be surrounded by friends, partners, co-workers, loved ones, and still carry an inner silence that no external presence seems capable of reaching. This silence grows heavier when it mixes with the feeling that you are not useful, that your life is not contributing to anything meaningful, that you are simply taking up space without leaving any mark. These thoughts, so common in the modern world, were deeply understood by the Stoics. They knew that a human being who does not feel useful collapses. They knew that a mind stuck in isolation becomes its own enemy. And they knew that if a person does not learn to master their internal narrative, they will be crushed by it. The Stoics believed that loneliness is not defeated by filling your life with people, noise, or distractions. Loneliness is defeated by strengthening your internal world, by learning to stand firm on your own 2 feet, by discovering that the meaning of your existence does not come from applause or validation, but from the internal quality of your actions. Feelings of uselessness, according to them, arise when a person becomes disconnected from their sense of inner duty. Not duty in the sense of obligation to society, but duty in the sense of realizing who you are capable of becoming and taking daily action toward that version. When you lose sight of your purpose, when you stop taking small but deliberate steps in the direction of growth, your mind begins to rot from inactivity. Marcus Aurelius described this as a form of spiritual decay, a weakening of the inner structure that holds a person together. To him, nothing was more tragic than a human who has forgotten their own potential. Because of this, the Stoics insisted that every person must confront their loneliness with courage, rather than fear. Instead of running away from the feeling, they faced it directly. asking themselves what the emotion was trying to reveal. Loneliness is often a signal that your connection to yourself has weakened. Feelings of uselessness are often a signal that your actions are not aligned with your deeper values. The Stoics would tell you that your discomfort is not a sign of personal failure, but a sign that something inside you is calling for transformation. You are being invited to rise, not collapse. You are being invited to look inward and become brutally honest about the life you are living versus the life you know you are meant to live. Inside this honesty, there is liberation. When you stop pretending you are fine, when you stop distracting yourself from your own emptiness, when you stop filling your days with meaningless noise, you finally create space to rebuild yourself. That is the reason the Stoics taught that solitude is not the enemy. The enemy is the story you attach to solitude. If you tell yourself that being alone is proof that you are unworthy, then loneliness becomes poison. But if you tell yourself that being alone is an opportunity to evolve, loneliness becomes your most powerful teacher. The shift happens entirely inside your perception. Many people feel useless because they measure their value through the eyes of others. They believe usefulness is something granted by society. But the Stoics measured usefulness through action. A virtuous action, even when no one sees it, is infinitely more valuable than 1,000 applause-filled moments. Epictetus said that no one can stop you from being useful because usefulness is a decision, not a circumstance. If you perform a small act of bravery, a small act of discipline, a small act of generosity, you immediately become useful. You immediately contribute to something greater than your own self-pity. And most importantly, you begin to rebuild the identity of a strong, capable human being. You fight feelings of uselessness not by waiting for someone to tell you that you matter. You fight them by choosing actions that prove you matter. You choose to clean your space even when you do not feel like it. You choose to learn something new even when it feels pointless. You choose to take care of your body, your health, your craft, even when motivation is weak. In these small steps, your self-respect starts returning. Your sense of meaning awakens. Your internal flame stops flickering and begins burning steadily again. This is what the Stoics meant when they said that action cures despair. You cannot think your way out of uselessness. You must act your way out. There is another truth the Stoics understood. Many feelings of loneliness come from idealized expectations about relationships. We expect others to fill us, complete us, heal us, save us. And when they don't, because no one can, the disappointment deepens the wound. But if you shift your expectation, if you understand that others cannot carry the weight of your emotional world, you free yourself from unrealistic demands. People can support you, they can accompany you, they can inspire you, but they cannot replace the inner work you must do. When you accept this, your relationships become healthier, not heavier. You begin to seek connection, not dependence. You begin to desire companionship, not rescue. Loneliness often reveals the parts of you that need strengthening. If you feel empty when you're alone, it is because you need to develop the version of yourself that you actually enjoy being with. The Stoics would tell you to build a mind so disciplined, so balanced, so noble, that solitude feels like a sanctuary rather than a punishment. They would tell you to cultivate interests, knowledge, creativity, physical strength, mental clarity, anything that develops you into someone you respect. Once you respect yourself, loneliness loses its power to intimidate you. You no longer fear being alone because you have become someone worth spending time with. And in that transformation, feelings of uselessness gradually fade. You begin to realize you have unique strengths to contribute. You begin to see that your suffering sharpened your awareness. You begin to notice that your solitude taught you resilience. You begin to understand that your pain carved space inside you for wisdom and compassion. The very experiences that once weakened you become the experiences that deepen you. This depth is what makes you useful to the world. Not superficial positivity, not empty confidence, but depth, the kind that comes from surviving your own internal storms. The Stoics believed that the world needs strong individuals, people who are not controlled by their loneliness or their insecurities, but who are capable of standing firm in the face of emotional chaos. They believed that your internal mastery becomes a form of service because every person who gains control over themselves reduces the amount of chaos in the collective. When you become stable, you become a point of stability for others. When you develop courage, others feel safer around you. When you walk with purpose, others feel inspired to search for their own. You have more impact than you imagine, even if you do not see it immediately. This is why you must not underestimate your worth. You are not useless. You are underdeveloped. You are not lonely because you are unlovable. You are lonely because you have not yet learned to stand in full connection with your own potential. You are not broken. You are in transition. The Stoics would tell you that you are in the early stages of becoming something far stronger than the version of yourself that existed before the pain. Suffering is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a deeper, more structured self. And this brings us to a final insight. The meaning of your life is not something you find. It is something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. You do not wait for purpose. You create purpose. You do not wait for confidence. You build confidence through repeated action. You do not wait for belonging. You create belonging first within yourself, then with others. You decide who you become, not society, not your past, not your fears. You. If you take anything from this entire journey, let it be this. Loneliness loses its power the moment you fill your life with intentional action. Uselessness loses its power the moment you begin acting with integrity. The world changes the moment you change internally. You are not powerless, you are not hopeless, you are not empty. You are someone standing at the doorway of transformation, and all you need to do is step through. If this message spoke to you, if it helped you breathe a little deeper, if it brought you clarity or strength, then I invite you to support this channel. Like this video so it reaches more people who need this message. Share it with someone who may be struggling in silence. Leave a comment below telling us which part resonated with you the most, because your perspective might help someone else. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so we can continue building this community of strength, purpose, and wisdom together. Your journey is just beginning, and I will be here with you every step of the way.